and then I directed two music recording in progress. And then I directed two musicals, Singing in the Rain and Spring Awakening. So. Oh, wait, do I say anything else? Never mind. I ruined it.
You are so good. All right, Julie.
Hey everyone, my name's Julie. I'm also class of 2020. Scary time, but good memories. And I choreographed Spring Awakening back in the day. Yeah, now I'm in Santa Barbara doing arts things.
Julie, where did you go to grad school?
Yeah, I just oh my gosh, putting me on the spot. I just graduated from Harvard for my master's. And yeah, now at UC Santa Barbara. So staying within the universities.
Yay, thank you, Julie. All right, Hannah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah. I just graduated, so class of 22. I directed Hooligan's most recent production, The Laramie Project, a play. And shortly after, I moved to Salt Lake City to work as a policy analyst and legislative tracker in the mayor's office here in Salt Lake, which has been really great. So if you have any questions about that either, slide me a DM, because I am not doing art stuff out here, but you know.
Awesome. All right, Nolani.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nolani. Sorry if my Wi-Fi is kind of shoddy, but I just graduated as well, 2022. And I stage managed a couple of shows. I stage managed Spring Awakening back in 2019, and then A Chorus Line, which was this past year. And yeah, since I just graduated, I'm at home, and that's all I'm doing right now. But if you have any opportunities for stage managing, I would love to know.
Awesome. And who do we have? Caitlin, if you're there. And yes, Krish was amazing.
Hi everyone, my name's Caitlin. I choreographed Chorus Line, and I also graduated in 2022 as well. So yeah, super excited to be here. Hello everyone.
Awesome. All right, we might be having one more person join our panel. He let me know that he might have to be a tiny bit late, but hopefully Jack can be joining us later. He is entering his 4th year at UCLA. He was our music director for A Chorus Line as well as for Something Rotten. And I believe he's in music production at UCLA. Caitlin, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. All right, Jackson, take it away.
We also just wanted to know, ask the beautiful panel. Have you guys had any experience in creative teams before Hooligan? And if so, how did that differ from your experience with Hooligan? I guess we'll start right back with Jake if he's ready.
No, I did not. It was my first, but it was a great. I mean, I think Hooligan's the perfect place to learn and to try it out for the first time. So, yeah, I guess that's my full answer.
And we'll go right on to Julie.
Yeah, I had choreographed a couple things in high school, but not like a full-on show. So that was definitely a whole different experience. My first theater anything was at Hooligan. So just really dove into it. So it's definitely possible if you have no experience.
How about it? Thank you.
I also had no theatrical directing experience. Coming in, I was familiar with the show I was directing, but that was about it. And I leaned very heavily on Krish for his expertise, and kind of came in as like I knew how to like keep morale up. And I really liked the show. And that was kind of all that I really knew how to do. It was talk loud and create a good team.
Yeah, same here. No experience whatsoever. And I didn't even assistant stage manage. I just went straight into stage managing, and it was my sophomore year. So it was a bit terrifying to say the least. I didn't even do theater before college. So super new experience all around. But exec back then and now super great at helping out with stage managing, and creative teams great. So it was really fun.
I guess I see Jack's here if he would like to introduce himself. I just noticed
There
that.
you
Oh,
go.
hey. Hi, my name's Jack. I vocal directed a chorus line as well as co-vocal directed. I don't know if Something Rotten. And no, I said something wrong, so I want to change. It was a great experience. I'm a senior this year, and I'm very excited to be in this meeting.
And have you done creative team before Hooligan?
Kind of, like a little bit, not much though. Hooligan really taught me a lot. I was so fortunate to be part of 2 awesome projects.
And then I'll jump in. Yeah, so I had choreographed dance before coming to UCLA, but that was very different than going through a whole musical process. You're definitely working as a team with the creative team. So yeah, that was something different, but I absolutely loved it, and it was awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, thanks, guys. Yeah, go ahead. We can just popcorn if you guys have an answer ready to go. We'll do it that way. So our next question is, what was the most surprising thing that you learned from being on a creative team?
I'll jump in. Something surprising that I learned is just how fast the process moves because it's the quarter system. You jump in auditions week 1 and you are rolling as fast as you can. So that's one thing, at least on the choreography end, that was a lot, just how fast you have to move. So that's something that was surprising to me. But it all came together, which was also surprising to me at the time. So just know it works out. You're we'll make it through. Yeah, so it was awesome.
Oh, sorry, Jake. I totally cut you off with my unmuting right when you raised your hand, and I'm going to continue to do so. I'm just going to power through it. I would say how little you learn in the audition room, especially for a play. I would just be like, oh, damn. So how important callbacks are. I knew as an actor, but I think I really you have 30 seconds. So on the actor side, you really got to do something big, even if you feel silly. It's not very long. And I think on the director's side, you got to be eyes up, ears open, take notes after, and also it's just the whole audition process, if you've never done it before, can be kind of hectic because you're like, what did I mean by this? And you have no context. So that was pretty challenging, but callbacks really make a difference. And my suggestion would just be Hooligan has rules and you'll learn them, but calling back as many people as possible is really great because you really want to give people as much of a chance as possible. And if you think, okay, maybe even a little iota of me thinks that this person can play this, just do it. Just call them back. I think it's really important. I think too often people get looked over just because in those 30 seconds, maybe someone's eyes were down or they weren't paying attention. And, it's good to 1, be attentive because you don't get a lot of time, and 2, call people back.
Okay, I got it. So it's kind of connected to what Hannah said, but a little just broader. It's you learn, because before I directed, I really just acted in shows. And I think directing and just being part of the creative team in general, I was surprised at how much I learned to not take things as personally when I'm actually acting. Because I did shows after I directed, and I started to take casting a lot less personally, because you really start to see just all the little machinations that it takes to put on a show, and how someone can be so good and so talented and they're just not the right fit for what you're trying to put together. The pieces just don't work together. You also start to realize the director, they're not mad at you all the time. They're busy and they're stressed about everything. And you really, I think you just get a lot of perspective about the side you're used to, about the acting side, by doing creative team. I think it's so useful. I really think everyone should do it, even if they don't want to do creative teams like long term. I think it's just such a useful thing to do.
I would say in terms of the choreography aspect, I found it really surprising of how aware I had to be of, every aspect of the show. So when I thought I was just I'm gonna choreograph some dances and yeah, sure. But I really had to be aware of the transition before, like what's the scene happening? What props are on there? I had to think, what are they singing? Are they gonna need a lot of breath support? Because I have to make sure they're not doing like super hardcore choreography. So it was just like a lot of things that I had to think about when choreographing. Really surprised me that I needed to know all of that. And I think that's one thing that's definitely important if you want to be a choreographer.
Yeah, going off of what everyone said, I think going in as a stage manager, since it was my first time, I didn't really know how much went into it. Like, it's all logistics being a stage manager, and just how much you need to be aware of, like everything about the cast, the crew, what they're doing production wise, everything, and how one decision, how one thing affects the rest of everything, even if it's super tiny. I remember during Spring Awakening, sometimes I would forget to email out a rehearsal reminder. That affects who's coming to rehearsal or not, if they like really count on those. So it just really, you need to it's kind of like babysitting. You need to be aware of all aspects at all times. Something goes wrong, you need to fix it. And I really had to, that's where I learned to think on my feet, be light on my feet, try to problem solve as quick as I can. And, that's a very good skill for life as well.
Well, we may move on to the next question. Unless anyone wants to jump on, but this one might be a difficult one. What was the most difficult part about being in the creative team? Jake, it's all you, man.
I think it's a very hooligan specific problem. But I think this isn't like saying, oh, hooligan's bad. I think it's the context of being in a college program and being in a student run program. It's the finding that balance between, especially as an active member of Hooligan, finding the balance between being, the babysitter, as Nolani put it, and these are people you have friendships with, and they're your peers. They're the same age as you, and even if they're a freshman or senior, same demographic. And it's difficult to find that balance. It is. I think it's certainly possible. I think I managed to find. I think everybody here that worked on a creative team definitely found it. And it can weigh on you. It can be really stressful, and it can make the whole process definitely more difficult. But at the same time, it's also what makes it so rewarding, because those are your peers, those are your friends, those are the people you love doing this stuff with, and you get to put it on with them. And it's a special experience overall, no matter how challenging it can be. I think that's one of the special things about Hooligan creative teams, is that you get that opportunity to do that. So yeah.
I think a challenging part too is just like Jake was saying, now we have to do this every single question, Jake. We have to refer back to each other. You have to learn to not take certain things personally, because your people who are your friends when you're acting in a show together are now different. And that was something that, It was, last term for us was super unique. And there were some things that I really had to kind of personally work through. Makes it sound like it was really dramatic. It really wasn't, but there were just some things where I was like, I can't take this personal. Like, just because I'm directing does not necessarily mean like I didn't write this show. This isn't like, this is my baby, but it's also not that serious. And so kind of learning how to navigate, like, people sort of treat you a little bit differently in rehearsal. You kind of treat people a little bit differently in rehearsal, bouncing back when you see them at a party, or another social gathering, and not taking certain things personally. Either, people can say mean things, even if they're your friend, or people, it can be a lot. But I think just kind of like really putting aside like your director's hat and your friend hat and your acting hat can be really helpful. Because, again, like Jake was saying, the director's not always mad at you. Your actors are not always mad at you. Not everything's the director's fault. Not everything is the actor's fault. Most of the time it's everyone. So I would say navigating that, Jake is right on it. That can definitely be the most challenging part.
Oh, we just unmuted. Okay. So to jump on that, I think that in that way, like the challenge, but also like a really fun one, is to always try and be as positive as you can and create a really positive environment for everyone. Because since it is a student theater company, it's really all about inclusivity and giving everybody the experience and being musical and putting on a show together. I think like creating an environment where people feel welcome and improving. So we're there.
Yeah.
I was just saying, jumping on that point, that it's really, I think it's really important to create, since we're all in a student company trying to create something like together, that it's really important and a challenge to create a really positive environment where everybody feels like excited to show up rehearsal and do the work, because I feel like that's when you're going to achieve the best stuff, especially in this environment. And so that was something that like I learned and really worked hard to foster, and make sure everybody felt not only like they were working and improving and like learning music and like in their vocal rehearsals, but that they were also like really excited to do it. So thanks.
I could do a really fast one. Oh, so sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, it'll be really fast. I think a big general challenge with any leadership position is finding the balance between being a student as well. When you're on creative team, and it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time, and you have a responsibility to like be prepared. So finding that balance between being a student, and then also with any show, there's going to be any challenges that come up, whether it's a COVID season and we're going to go online, or different things that come up. But just knowing, like, taking a problem and saying, okay, but what can we do from here? How do we go from, thank you. My time is coming out and I'm just screaming in public. But there are going to be challenges that come up, and just knowing that, not dwelling in it and saying, okay, but how do we fix it? How do we move forward? What can we do as a team to make this happen is really important as a creative team member. But yeah.
Yeah, I think both of mine relate to both Caitlin and Jack's. I think one of the most difficult parts is, you have to be flexible to be on the creative team. It's like, it's impossible to not be flexible. Things happen. I know at one point I had to choreograph like on the spot, and, that was stressful. But, you just take a breath and you do what you need to do, because we're on a schedule and sometimes that's what you need to do. So, and then again, I think being positive as well. I was probably super stressed out that entire quarter. And I think only a couple of my closest friends know truly how stressed I was. So, just put a smile, get through it, and then, deal with it later. Although that's my own thing. Like, you definitely can, deal with your feelings your own way. But you wanted to make this experience and a joyful experience for everyone. And that starts with you, because as a creative team, you are one of the leaders of the show. So, it stems from the top end, it trickles down, and then everyone's going to think back on it and be like, oh yeah, that was a fun experience. If you are able to create that environment.
Yeah, I also agree with what everyone said. I think some of the hardest things for me when I was first starting out, one was finding that balance that Hannah was talking about of like stage manager versus like friend. In Spring Awakening, I had a few friends who were in there, and also a lot of them were older than me since I was a sophomore. And so trying to find that authoritative like feeling and being like, okay, I'm in charge of this like scenario, like I need to run this production and this rehearsal the way it needs to be run, and trying to figure that out while also not feeling like I'm in charge kind of thing, was really kind of hard to navigate. I think I got it down for a chorus line, but Spring Awakening, that whole thing, I was kind of like, I don't know. But I mean, Spring Awakening was great either way. And then, yeah, like Caitlin said, finding time between school and between the production, and trying to balance all of that, you really need to do, especially with the quarter system and everything. It goes by really fast. And so, yeah, you need to be able to balance that in a way that fits you and fits how you see it and stuff like that. So yeah, those were challenging, but I think I got it.
You definitely got it, Nolani. Yes, Google Calendar. We also like use, Kendall, you can correct me, we are on top of our calendar already. So next question, what helped you the most, whether it was a Google Calendar or a support from a certain person or just different forms of communication? What helped you guys the most throughout the process?
I have a really easy, I'm so sorry, Julie, answer for this. So Krish and I sat down right after casting and we blocked the entire show. It was, it's just a play, so I'm not saying like, but I think being and like, okay, we changed a lot. We had our stage directions backwards when we wrote it, so we had to flip everything. I mean, it was fun. It was just like changing the L to an R. Like we just had them backwards in our head. But we were like, we didn't even say anything to each other. We were in like collective agreement that they were just, that was right and we were wrong. We figured that out like rehearsal one. But I think sitting down, planning it all out, talking about the idea of the show, the flow of the show, really getting it out there and like cluing in as many people as possible on the creative team to that thought process, the reasoning behind things, our goal for the show, I think really allowed. I got COVID like 2 weeks before tech, and I was in isolation, and Krish was able to, it felt seamless on my end. But one day I was just gone and I came back and the show was exactly how I thought it would look. Krish was like, I made a couple changes because it just didn't look the way I knew I thought we wanted to look. I really liked all of his changes because we were on the same page about everything. Our rehearsals were blocked out. We grouped, we did everything really early. And I think that helped us so much. We had to change a few things here and there, of course, but I think like having on the actor side, I think it was a lot better for them. On our side, it was really smooth, given one of the worst fucking things that can happen, which is your director fully disengaging for 2 weeks. And that was really great. I think the other thing that helped the most was you as the director, especially, but being on the creative team. And this also goes for being a lead actor. You're not just responsible for putting together a show, you are responsible for morale. So it's really, really important to know everyone's names, say what's up to everyone, make everyone feel included, make everyone feel important. It's really, really important to have that morale, to create that team. People told me after the show, like, the Laramie project is really, really heavy. It's really serious. And I had people come and be like, I've never seen a cast laugh so much and get along so well and have so much fun together. And the show is about a horrendous thing. And we were doing, we would be doing these really heavy scenes and then be laughing about something totally different, for context, something totally different, like right after, because we had a really good bond. We had a really good work ethic. And I think it just made everything so much smoother to be so well prepared to demonstrate to our actors, we care about your time. We respect that you're here. We're thankful that you're here. We want you here. You're being used well. And then also to have that dynamic of like, I would constantly be like, okay, we got to get back to work. Like it just flowed really nicely and we got everything we needed to get done when it needed to get done. And we had a really, really good team. Yeah, we also only had one day of tech and that was crazy. And there was only one moment in the entire process where I wanted to scream. And I feel like that's kind of a win. So those are my two biggest things. And I really cannot emphasize them enough.
I can go. I think, wait, what was the question? Sorry.
What helped you the most?
What helped me? Okay. I was like, how do I phrase this? Because I remember my answer, but I forgot how it related. I think what helped me the most is that, my love for dance. I absolutely love dance. So when you're doing what you love, like it makes everything worth it. And I know, yeah, I was stressed out and I just said that, but every rehearsal, like I remember looking back on those and I'm like, I was doing what I love. And, even in the process of my whole freaking Apple remix that year, I don't use Spotify, sue me, but my whole Apple music kind of end of the year thing was all Spring Awakening. And, I still sometimes listen to it and I think about like my choreo and I'm like that was a beautiful time. So, I think when you're doing something that you love to do and putting in that passion, it just drives the work forward. So I think, just doing something and being excited about it is, and things will fall into place. It'll happen. Just know that in the end, it's going to happen. It might not look like it, but it will happen. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Sorry. I unmuted. I'll call it. I think, it's kind of simple. Everything they're saying is so true. But I think also just like your other creative team members, like that's the purpose. You guys are all supposed to work together. And I think plays are kind of tough because it's mostly just director, stage manager, assistant director, but musicals are amazing because there's like 30 of you. And in both musicals, there was always, a few people that you're just really able to lean on. I think having like a mutual understanding of what you're going for, what the purpose of your show is so essential. Because then as long as you're on the same track, getting to rely on each other when it gets hard, like they're the only people who are really going to fully get what you're going through because they're dealing with the same cast and the same producers, the same tech that you are. Yeah, I think just really looking to each other to prop each other up is so important.
As a stage manager, Google Drive was my best friend. I love the Google Drive and also all of the templates that Laura, past stage manager, really great friend. Yeah, not sponsored at all. She sent me a whole bunch of like templates for the rehearsal reminder, like the rehearsal calendar, all that stuff. So that really helped me during Spring Awakening when I had no idea what I was doing. Kinjal, Krish, if you guys don't have that, I can send it over to you because those are like essential for stage managing for Hooligan. And yeah, having a good support group within creative team and within the cast or just within your friend group that's not related to Hooligan at all really helped me out. There were times where I was really stressed and it's just good to have, especially a group where they're not related to hooligan at all and they're removed from the situation, so you can kind of vent and like let it all out and deal with it with people who have no idea what you're talking about. That's amazing. I really counted on those people. Yeah.
Super fast, helpful ones for choreo specifically. Number one, I used an app called Choreo Room where you could block every single member of your cast through every position. So then you have all the blocking done, and you could upload it to that Google Drive so that if they miss a rehearsal or anything, they have it all there and they don't have to come ask you 10 different times where they are. So they have it. Once it's in there, they have access to it. Number two, being prepared to go to rehearsal so it's an efficiently and like productive rehearsal. The worst is when there's wasted time because your time is so limited. So being prepared. And then lastly, like everyone's been saying, super open communication with the rest of the creative team, knowing who is on stage before, where they're going, what the lighting's doing. All that will help you throughout the process and make tech so much easier. So choreo room, being prepared, and talking openly with creative team members are my go-tos.
And I guess the next question would be, what are some things that you noticed while being on a creative team that you thought that you overlooked, but actually turned out to be quite important to the actual show or production?
Costumes. I didn't think about costumes at all. And then our costume designers told us like, what, like basically when I was done having COVID, I came back the first day and they were like, we're not going to be there for the show. And I was like, oh, word. And so they handed us a box of clothes and I was like, I hate this. And I remember telling them in a meeting, like, I don't want anything too literal. Like, it's a very high concept play. Like, I don't want, there's a couple jail scenes. I don't want a jumpsuit. They gave us a jumpsuit, an orange jumpsuit. And I was like, this is the one thing I explicitly stated that I did not want. And you're handing it to me. There was like a Jedi robe in the box too. I think that just wound up there by mistake, but like, we actually had more fun with that than anything else. I really didn't think about the costumes. I kind of took that sort of stuff. We were really involved on scenic, but we really put like, and I think more or less with hair and makeup, we were just like, and that meant less is more with this play. But costumes was something we really just kind of like had an idea of, but I think that was the one thing we just kind of let go. And then it was like actors were basically costume designing the show the day of. And I had to do some negotiating because I gave the actors too much power by mistake. And they were like, I want to wear this. And I was like, no, I'm your director. No. So I think like those kinds of things, the hair, the makeup, have an idea of what you want and be in contact, because it's just something that I think because they're not coming to rehearsal and they don't have to like build anything like scenic does, it can just be procrastinated. So checking in with them really frequently, if you think it's smart, setting deadlines for them and being like, hey, I want concepts, I want color palettes, I want a mood board or something by this time so I can review it with you. And then I need to review. Don't have the presentation that the actors get shown about the costumes be the first time that you see them. And I think that was like one of the few mistakes that we definitely made. And we were just like, and being like during the fitting, being like, you're not wearing that. So that was kind of rough and unexpected, but super important.
Sorry, you guys saw that, sorry. For choreo, at least I found it surprising, kind of choreo's relationship to lighting, that I knew that was a thing, but like I was like, and it'll happen, like, and everything will be fine. And you really have to, take a step back and watch it and know what's happening. I know I had one of my dancers that was like doing her solo thing, and she was like, I cannot see on stage. She's like, I'm doing this and it's dark. And I'm like, you need to tell me this because I don't know what's happening. Like it looks okay on stage, but like just make sure you check in with your dancers, with also the tech people, the lighting designer, and like make sure that that's correlating, make sure people are safe first of all, but then also making sure that the lighting is kind of where you're imagining it in a sense, I guess. Yeah.
I'm gonna jump on one more thing for choreo. In other productions, sometimes our librettos don't match like Spotify's Broadway recordings. So for choreo specifically, I would be in constant communication with whoever's music directing. Like for Chorus Line, I would get with the wonderful Glittis and be like, can we just go through measures really fast and make sure we have the same copy of music? Because you do not want to get to sits probe and realize, oh wow, there's like 5 more 8s here that we don't have. So definitely be in communication with your music director.
One big one that I feel like every single show I like forgot was important, and then I remember immediately was scheduling. It's one of the first things you do early on, and it's really tough because you think you know how, like you really have to prepare and know how much time you want to divide to every single thing. You have to be honest with yourself about what's going to take long and what's not going to take long. Like certainly for Singing in the Rain specifically, we definitely underestimated how long certain dances would take to learn. And I certainly overestimated how tough the dialogue and deep themes of Singing in the Rain were going to be. And I definitely had some longer rehearsals than I needed for my thing. So it's just, I mean, it's already so hard because everyone's got conflicts. You're all in school and you're all a million different clubs you're in. And I think really coming in with an idea of, and you really, I mean, you'll be wrong. I hate to say you will be wrong with what will take the most time and what's not going to take, what won't take long. I don't really know what my solution to that is. I think it's just something you pick up as you go along. And I mean, just know that you can always adapt, but definitely always be thinking about that, especially early on when you're planning that all out.
On that same note, look at actors' schedules when you cast them. If they are not going to be there, do not make them a lead. It is extremely frustrating, not only as a director, but also as an actor, when you're like, they're never freaking here and they got the role. That is also scheduling. I love being this person. I do this all the time. I will schedule things for like 15, half an hour longer than I think they're going to take. And then I let people go. There's nothing more satisfying than being like, people love you as a director if you're always like, oh, yeah, we're good. Have a good night. You know, it's obviously if you're doing like choreo vocals, you really want to clean things. So you kind of have to be the bad guy. But as a director, you know, at least when I was directing, I wasn't looking to like get them to memorize it in the moment. So I was like, okay, you know, you're blocking. You have my notes on what I want. I'll see you in a couple weeks. And I always opted to kind of over budget. And then you had maybe like, it was never that much more time. It was always like 5 minutes. And I was like, you can go, we're good. So yeah, and be cognizant if you're going to schedule multiple things on one day. If you're going to make people just sit down for an hour, that's not okay. And you need to let people know far in advance, like bring homework, bring something. I'm really sorry, this was unavoidable.
Yeah, I was just gonna say what Hannah said, honestly, especially as like a stage manager, you are in charge of like the scheduling aspect and making sure everyone's there and stuff like that. I mean, the whole creative team contributes to the scheduling, but the stage manager is who like says all these things and like makes it known to the cast and the crew and everything. So be very aware of the scheduling. If you see something while the whole creative team is creating the schedule and it looks off, speak up, because you are like, the stage manager is the one who truly knows all of the cast conflicts and truly knows all of the logistics behind like when this needs to be done, when this needs to be done. So just make sure that you're aware of that and aware of what truly does need to be done soon rather than later. and really making sure you know people's conflicts. And sometimes I overlook like when people were going to be there or not. We scheduled something and for one day and it was like 3 people are for sure not going to be there, I was like, okay, whatever, let's have it on this day. And then one of those people ended up really needing to be in that scene. So yeah, just pay attention to people's characters, what scenes you're going to be doing, and if they cannot be there, it needs to be moved. Yeah, just a lot of things going on, a lot of logistics that you really do need to be aware of, especially in that first couple of weeks.
Something that I don't know if it was unexpected, but maybe it was like at least the first couple of rehearsals, it's incredibly nerve-wracking to be like the leader of the rehearsal too. So like just gear yourself up for like, it's a very nerve-wracking like experience. Like walk in, it's your first day and like everyone's expecting you to lead them. It's a lot of pressure. Or we'd see like all those faces like expecting like for you to do something. So it's like I found it incredibly nerve-wracking the first couple of times. But then you sort of, as it goes on, you sort of get more comfortable and you sink into it. But it's something to definitely be aware of. It's a great nervous because it's like it gets you like moving and makes you want to prepare as much as you can. Like I remember before the first vocal rehearsal, like Ethan and I, who was assisting that production, were like preparing like, oh, what scales we're gonna do, like exactly what we're gonna do. And like I don't know if it was helpful or not because it kind of just turned into like what it was gonna be, but like it made us feel much more comfortable. So just like going in prepared will make you feel more comfortable because it's gonna be nerve-wracking.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So we have a question from someone who is unfortunately not able to make it today, but Kiara asks, and this is really at mostly stage managers and ASM, so Ms. Nolani, but also for everyone. What is the time commitment like?
Yeah. So as like a head stage manager, it is very time consuming. And it also depends on who your ASMs are, because I've been really lucky with my ASMs and they've kind of taken some load off of me. But it really depends on what some advice that I would give to someone who is starting off as a stage manager, ASM or whatever. If you're starting off straight as a stage manager, delegate those things to your ASMs. Delegate, please, for your sake, like the sake of your mental health and everything, because for me as a sophomore doing Spring Awakening, I didn't really know how to delegate and I was just like, I'll just do everything. And yeah, it went downhill. My mental health was so I definitely lean on your ASMs, lean on the execs, anything that you have questions on, lean on other people. They're there to help you. All of you are in it together. But yeah, stage managers, you have to be there pretty much every rehearsal. And that's why I say delegate, because your ASMs can go to rehearsals that you can't go to. If something like an emergency happens, then you can have an ASM go, or maybe exec can go if you like time it out rightly, that kind of stuff. But yeah, usually rehearsals, there's like 5 a week and stuff like that. And they're usually like 4 hours long. So I would say like be aware of that. Make sure you know your schedule going into being a stage manager, and in a parking lot. Yeah, and depending on the time of year, if you're doing a fall thing, wear a lot of layers. Yeah, so that whole thing, it is very time consuming. But personally, if you're the type of person that loves like managing things and dealing with all that kind of stuff, very rewarding. But yeah, make sure you have homework set up, make sure you set aside the time. And yeah, you definitely want to like help assistants learn as well, so they can one day become stage managers. But yeah.
Yes. And I feel like it varies by, we've done show and role too. Like, obviously I think like Hannah, directing a play, that was probably a huge commitment as a director of a play. But like, I feel like for me, like vocals with chorus line was like, less of a commitment than like Caitlin's was as a choreographer. So it depends on the show. And I feel like with the upcoming shows, however, they are kind of intense all around. Sweeney Todd definitely is probably the more intense side in terms of vocals and directing. So I feel like it depends on the role and like the show, and then you can like go and do it, like doing your research on the show as well.
Yeah, I'll just say it was a lot planned for a lot of, you can commit a lot of time to it. I made the dumb mistake of choreographing and was in the ensemble, and that was even more time. So I don't think I recommend that, but just know you're gonna dedicate your life to that if that's something you want to do.
Oh, but like Jack said, different roles have different, but it's all a lot of time. But the great thing about being a stage manager that the other parts of creative team don't have is that we, like, after we're done doing rehearsal, after we're done, we can go home and relax. We don't really have to think about like the artistic processes unless like the director, vocal director, whoever need assistance. But we don't have to think about that kind of things. We just execute them. So I love that about being a stage manager.
Yeah, I was just gonna pop in real quick and say I don't know if it's a universal experience for all directors. If I'm directing a show in a quarter, that's where my head is at the whole quarter. So it is a massive commitment, but it's so fun. It's so fun. I think like Julie was saying earlier, like if it's something you like to do and you like theater at all, and that's all you really like can focus on and think about, I mean, do your classes and all that, it's a great experience. Like I know that sounds like a lot, but it's so worth it. It really is.
The next question is going to be, what was the best way, or what's the best way to prep for a rehearsal or meetings or creative meetings, anything like that?
I mean, I think
For
it's
music-
just,
my bad.
damn,
You go.
sorry, Jack. It's gonna happen every time. I think, yeah, thank you, Caitlin. I think the biggest thing, and from a play standpoint, like obviously there's way more moving parts in a musical, is like I said, I sat down with my assistant director. We blocked the entire show, even though we did it backwards and we did change a lot. We had an idea of what we wanted going into every single rehearsal, and we knew how we wanted to structure a rehearsal. So the way that we did it was we just gave people blocking, and we helped that we did a read through. We talked about the scene a little bit, and then we blocked it. And I really said like, and then throughout the process we did, because every actor in my show played between like 4 and some of them like 7 characters. So we sat down with them for like a half an hour to an hour, went through every single character and said like, okay, like Krish made this wonderful template that you should definitely ask him for if you decide to direct. That was just like, how does your character hold themselves? What is their tone? How do they talk? How do they move? How do they walk? How do they think? What do they like? And pick and so I think we decided that rehearsal was for blocking and executing the show, and that we would do one-on-one time with the actors to get that character stuff down. And then when we saw them again without the scripts, it was a lot easier to just focus more on that character stuff. So I think, block in advance. You'll make changes on the fly. That's just going to happen. Block in advance and know what you want your rehearsals to run like. And then it's just like, plugging in variables. Okay. We have this basic structure and we know what we're going to do per scene. So I really like I would preview every night, like, what are we doing? I didn't have to do that much like prep work once we were done blocking everything. It was just like, okay, I'm walking in, we're reading this, I preview stuff, but it was really simple. And I think that's really the formula for a director, especially a play. I really can't speak to a musical. That worked out really well for me because I wasn't spending all day stressed about the rehearsal, or the night before or the 5 minutes before. And I think the actors, it was really good to have a routine where it was like, we're playing a game to warm up, we're doing a table read, we're blocking, we're running, we go home.
Just to keep it on the director side of it all. For me personally, I'm a very I'm an English major, so my directing style is very much, I guess, that reading and then analyzing and then reading again. And so before every rehearsal, I make sure to read the scene, to make a million little notes. My scripts were like crazy. Like, you would think I'm insane if you looked at those. And just really knowing, I mean, structure is that's the best answer for sure. Like, knowing how you do this rehearsal, how it works for the kind of directing you want to do. Because the way mine were, if we would do a discussion for sometimes maybe too long, we would talk about the text, and then we would put it on its feet. I blocking, yes. Nick Del Zompo. Sorry, I got real excited there. Oh, now I'm all flustered. I would block kind of last minute, especially because blocking can be fluid, but I do agree it's better to know what you're blocking with. But I think the biggest thing, especially with directing, and I keep saying it, is like knowing what you're trying to say with the scene and knowing how you want to lead that discussion. But then the other big thing is you kind of hope the actors take you somewhere else, or at least take you somewhere fun with it. So yeah, I just read and take notes, make so many notes, record all your thoughts, and that way you can discern which ones are the best ones.
I can talk about the choreo side really fast. Number one, getting with assistants to either make up the choreography. For Chorus Line, we had really iconic choreography that we also learned, like the opening number. So learning it or making it up is first. Second, it's so important to start rehearsals on time and to establish that right from the beginning so that everyone's there ready to go on time. And that's like your time to establish the vibes, like put like fun music on, get everybody really excited and ready to learn. Also, kind of what going off what Hannah said, going in with a plan of what needs to be done by the end and what your rehearsal is going to look like, saying, hey, assistant Jack, you're going to be leading this portion for 20 minutes while I go work with this group to really utilize your timing. And then 2 other tips for anyone looking to go into choreo. I always like to have 3 things that need to be fixed at all times in my head. So whenever there's a moment of downtime, be like, hey, let's fix this really fast. Or, hey, while this assistant goes to look at this section, just to review so they're prepared in 5 minutes, I'm going to fix this with the 5 minutes I have. Also taking videos and posting them so they have them at all times. And then my last little tip, this came up when we were talking about scheduling for choreo. As soon as you get that schedule, you need to be booking spaces or calling Wooden to see if you can use racquetball courts, use rooms. And if not, parking lots are great too. But doing that as early as you can is going to give you the best spaces early. So that was a lot, but that's the choreo end of things.
She was so good.
I guess we'll stick with choreo for a little bit. I thought that was amazing. So yeah, I guess my process, as soon as I found out, I would be choreographing, I listened to the album nonstop, came up with choreo. I literally would just lay down and like let my body move where it wanted to, and then things happened, and I was like, oh, that would look cool, and imagine it in my brain. So that takes a while, so give yourself time for that. And then how I like to structure rehearsals, well, usually I would kind of check in with Jake beforehand, give him like a little, like, this is my ideas. This is kind of what I didn't have to have it fully set, but we met just so I can get a sense of, you know, if I was going in the right direction of his vision, things like that. I think that's important too, so that everyone's on the same page. And then for rehearsals, I would actually be very intentional with the warm-ups. So in Spring Awakening, for Touch Me, for example, it's in the count of 6. So for all the warm-up songs, I would only have songs that were in 6. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, so that they had that beat already in their brains. So once we switched to the song, it was so easy because I was like, you know how we've been listening to this? Like, so just think of like little things like that. It does help. And so they were in that mindset. Also taking time to, like, breaks are something I strongly believe in. Make sure you leave in time for breaks, because, you know, especially with choreo, you're moving a lot, you need water, you need time just to breathe. And breaks are the time when the cast bonds the most. So that's also important. Do formations, you know, early on. I think that took the most times of, in terms of me. I didn't have a fancy app that I wish I knew about, Caitlin. So I'm definitely going to put that in my repertoire now. I've had old school paper with people's initials. And then sometimes I was like, whose X is this? Like, it was bad. So definitely use technology on that. I recommend. And yeah, then at the end, you know, just keep a positive mindset, be smiling, and make sure people have a good time in rehearsals because you want them to have fun.
Yeah, for my position, just make sure your technology's charged. You're gonna need your iPad, your computer, all that stuff to take attendance, to do the rehearsal report, which you just have to keep the time on rehearsals. And yeah, you're gonna have a lot of downtime since you're really just there to like make sure the rehearsal goes smoothly. So if whoever is running the rehearsal, like the director, vocal director, choreographer, if they're running it and everything's smooth, you can just sit there and do homework or whatever. But also be ready if like any of them need your help with anything. There have been times where, because I do dance as well, so I've had to jump in for choreo and like fill a spot for someone or whatever. If you don't dance, like that's totally fine, but sometimes you just have to stand there for some people and like read lines if someone's not there. Just be alert of everything that's happening, and do not put your phone on do not disturb, because people are going to contact you from all aspects of the production, whether it be cast members running late, crew members who are working on things that need an opinion on something or need help with something, or other people on the creative team asking about what's happening during that rehearsal that you are at. So definitely make sure communication goes out as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right. So for the sake of time, this is last call. If you guys have any other questions and you want to drop them in the chat, feel free. We would love to have them. In the meantime, we're going to have our lovely executive producers, Kinjal and Krish, go ahead and speak a little bit about the hiring and interviewing process for creative teams is going to work this year.
Hi, yeah. So creative team hiring. Well, to start off, if you're interested in being involved in creative team for Sweeney Todd, we are taking applications now. You just email PM, like literally the letters PM at hooligantheater.org. That's where you'll get more information. If you even just have a question and you're like, hey, can you tell me more about this? About any position, like that's who you email. They'll help you figure it out, or be like, oh, do you want to interview for everything? We have had people interview for like 5 different positions before. It's a good time. Your interview tends to be a little long, but yes. In terms of the actual interview, given usually a Google form before. That's where we get logistical information from you. That's your name, your year, your major, all of that good stuff. We love to know about you. We usually ask like fun questions, like skills that you have. And some of you write down like skills related to your position. Some of you are really fun and talk about how you've like climbed like giant mountains, or like been out in the middle of nowhere for like ever, or like, oh yeah, I've been to every restaurant in Westwood and stuff like that. So all sorts of fun things. We love reading all of them. And then yeah. And then our actual interview, we'll ask you some questions about yourself, a little bit about the position. What do you know about the show? Really try to check and see like your understanding. Make sure you like read the show before applying. Read the show. People show up not knowing anything about the show. If you're applying for a directing position, we love it if you have like visual aids with your vision. At least for fall, all of our interviews are gonna be on Zoom, so like you can share your screen. Really great. And then new for this year, we realized in the past we haven't had like questions to like actually show us like what you can do, see like how you teach and stuff like that. So we are adding more questions that are like practical application. So for directing, we'll give you like a little scene and you'll have like a couple minutes to go through, show us how you would explain how you would like work with the actors. Just like a quick rundown, doesn't have to be super in detail. For vocal directing, we'll ask you to like lead warm-ups with us, or maybe give you a little passage, be like, how would you explain this to someone who doesn't read music? For choreo, we'll ask you to like send us a video of like a little section that you choreographed, and then maybe teach us like 2 8 counts of it during your interview. Just so we know what you're doing. We also ask choreo for that video to make sure that, you know, you have an audition dance combo. Be really great to have that done, not the night before. So we're really trying to add like that aspect to it. We ask a lot more like practical questions. We're also trying to shorten the interviews a bit just because they've been really long and very different from person to person. So if you've interviewed in the past, they're a little bit different now, as the questions that were edited about a week ago. So that's kind of the rundown of the process. And we usually have about 2 weeks of interviews, sometimes more, sometimes a little less. But that's around when you'll hear back from us. We'll let you know when you'll hear back. We'll give you a lot of logistical information and tell you not to write it down because you'll get it in writing. But yeah, that's more or less how the interview process goes. Are there any questions about that?
You may have touched on this, but do you have an idea as to when people would find out they are hired or not?
Yes, we tell you in the interview at the end on like what date you'll hear back by. It's usually depending on when in like the 2 weeks of like interviews. Could be anything from 1 day later to like a week, 2 weeks later. But we will tell you the date in there. Interviews are starting next week, so obviously no one's going to hear back yet. But you'll probably be hearing back at the end of the interview process. And yes, we will give you a date. Krish, anything to add?
Nope, just want to reiterate, email now, no experience necessary. Like, I think like Hannah was saying, she'd never directed before, and Laramie's like the best directed show I think I've ever seen. So
Okay. Sorry. I asked Haley if I could say one more thing. I'm gonna say it quick. Read the show. Everyone in your casting room needs to read the show. Understand all the characters you're casting for. Do not allow anyone in your casting room, who has not read the show, does not understand the characters. You can tell actors what to be prepared for, and they can come back with, I'm not comfortable with that, or I don't know if I can do that, or I really want to do that. Know the show before you cast. It's my probably like such a big thing that I had to ask Haley, like, please let me say this. So that's my piece.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you, panelists, for participating. It's so good to see all of these old and new faces. Again, if you guys have any other questions about what it's like to be on a creative team or just general questions about the company, you can check out our Instagram at Hooligan Theater. You can go ahead and email the PM email. It's all on our Instagram as well. And we'll be happy to help you there. So thank you guys for coming. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye, Nick. And then, hey. Thank you guys. That went super well. I'm gonna stop recording before I forget.